Hello, everyone. I hope all is well with you. Thank you so much for being here today. This is Sarah. I will be with you today to present the topic about the power of a positive mindset. And at the same time, we will be discussing techniques for building and maintaining healthy habits. So just to give you a quick overview about who am I, I'm a clinical psychologist. I work across different age groups, mainly adolescents and adults, and I work with different mental health disorders like depression, anxiety, and it shouldn't just be a mental disorder, but also any difficulty or any experience that some of you are struggling with, we can help with that. Now I'm practicing at a newly mental health established clinic. It's Journey Wellness Center. We are present in Business Bay, and we offer different mental health services like individual therapy, couples therapy, meditation, and support groups. So you can find me at Journey Wellness Center. So as you all know, today's topic is more about building a positive mindset or like shifting towards a positive mindset. And we will be going over different things about the positive mindset and how to work around building new habits and techniques to help you with that. So to start with, I know our interaction today is kind of limited, but you can put in any thoughts or any questions or any inputs into this presentation, and I will be going over through them. So just to start with a quick refresher about this topic, I would like you to think with me around some habits that you try to maintain throughout the years or try to develop and work on, and you struggled actually to maintain. And what were some of the barriers that affected this habit or that was an obstacle for you to maintain this habit? So for example, let me mention some of the habits, the cliche habits that we all talk about: a healthy lifestyle with healthy eating, sleeping well, sleeping 8 hours, exercising. But when we specifically maybe talk about the workplace, there's a lot of habits that a lot of employees try to work on, which is with time management, keeping up with certain notes, working on certain presentations in a certain way, maybe also trying to maintain or keep a work-life balance and setting boundaries with certain employees or a boss or a manager. So these might be certain habits that you can think of. And some barriers would be mainly in general, before just thinking about the workplace, would be maybe social relationships, which might affect you going to the gym or eating well, or it would affect maybe some barriers also would be in the workplace, like having a certain boss who's hard to deal with, certain employees who would cross a lot of boundaries, maybe a lot of tasks that you keep with that's affecting your time management skills and building on that. So actually, it's very important for us to think about those habits because it helps us a lot with actually thinking or planning ahead or setting goals on whether this habit worked with me before or not. Was I able to implement it? Was I able to work around it? What were the barriers for us to think today of ways that can help us maintain this habit again and think about it all over again. So I decided today to go around to talk about the science of a positive mindset. Because when we think of a positive mindset, some of us would think about the idea that it's just a concept or an idea that we just think about. But with positive mindset and with positivity, it's more than just a concept or just an idea. So there's actually science behind it. There's research behind it. There's a lot of things that would encourage us to work on a positive mindset and develop a positive mindset. So first, when we think of a positive mindset, it's not just us having positive thoughts, having or thinking about positive thoughts and positive emotions, because there's this tendency with us just thinking that if I'm positive, I should experience everything positive around me. I should see everything positive around me. Whatever happens around me, I shouldn't accept anything negative, or I shouldn't approach anything negative. So I should be surrounded. It's like me living in utopia, or this la la land, that everything is good and nothing would ruin this. But when we talk about a positive mindset, it's definitely much more than that, and it's not just happy thoughts. It's more of a mental attitude that focuses on different concepts and ideas, like optimism, like resilience, and also constructive problem solving. Because when we think of positivity, it's not just as I said, having everything perfect and everything positive, but rather it's helping us broaden our thinking. It helps us with thinking outside of the box, looking into different options, different solutions to solve whatever comes to mind. So with developing this mindset, we could be exposed to a lot of problems, a lot of issues that would affect us in a certain way. It could be a lot of negativity, a lot of traumas and experiences. But with the positive mindset, we would approach this differently. So basically, science has shown that cultivating a positive mindset has profound effects on mental and also on our physical health. It helps a lot with productivity and also with overall well-being. So now I will go one by one through the science. It's a quick overview about different aspects of what science shows us on a positive mindset. So first, it's about an idea or a concept called neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is also it's also known as neural plasticity or as brain plasticity. It's the ability of the brain to form and recognize synaptic connections. I won't go into the very science of things, but it's actually the connections between the synapses in the brain, and it happens in response to learning or in response to any experience or anything following a journey or a trauma. So our brain rewires in a certain way. Our brain are adaptable and they can rewire itself based on repeated thoughts and behaviors. So as long as we repeat a certain thought, we repeat a certain behavior, we work on things repetitively, our brain is rewired in a way to learn this behavior or to learn this thought, and to have it in a way to make it one of the basics or one of the foundations of our beliefs and our thoughts. So with this neuroplasticity, positive thinking reinforces those neural pathways that make optimism and resilience like a default response over time. So as as long as we start working on developing like a positive mindset, we'd work on positive thoughts, we think about positive thoughts, we think about more ways of problem solving things, our mind would be rewired in a way to use that approach more often and use that appropriate behavior more often. So usually with neuroplasticity, it basically begins in the womb, and it continues until death, and it's a process that never stops. But the rate of this neuroplasticity or the connections that happens in the brain is actually higher in children than in adults, because with children, or like especially newborns, they have everything to learn around them. So their brains would be more active to work on new connections, new learning, and new experiences. As for adults, they have already learned the fundamentals and the basics of things. So that's why with children or with toddlers or around like 5-year-olds, they would be able to learn like a new skill easier, learn a new language easier, and learn new behaviors easier. It would be faster than how adults would do that. So this is about neuroplasticity. Then there's the idea of a negativity bias. What do we mean by negativity bias? It's actually the tendency of humans, which is like, it's a human nature thing, that they're naturally wired to focus on negative thoughts. and not only negative thoughts, but we focus also on the threats for survival. What do we mean by that? What we mean by the threats for survival, it's not just physical survival, like getting into an accident or harming ourselves or anything related to our physical safety, but it's more also about any threats in our psychological world, if I might say. So any stressor, any trauma, any experience that would make you feel overwhelmed or exhausted. These are also threats to our survival, to our well-being, to our psychological safety and emotional well-being as well. So with negativity bias, we have this tendency to focus on such events and on this on negative thoughts. So with having the tendency to think or to use a positive mindset, it helps us override this bias, and it helps us create a more a balance, if I might say, between a balance that supports growth and also our well-being. So it works also with neuroplasticity. So as long as I work on developing positive mindset or like working on problem solving and broadening my thinking, it would help me override this negativity bias. So then comes the idea of dopamine and serotonin. So with positive emotions, with working on neuroplasticity and working on our happy thoughts or our positive emotions and positive thoughts, they would help release what we call like feel-good chemicals. And feel-good chemicals, they are the hormones known as dopamine and serotonin. Mainly they are known to be happy hormones or happy chemicals. And basically, serotonin is associated with happiness, with calmness, and with focus. As for dopamine, it's associated with reward and motivation. So imagine, the more you think positively, the more you have those positive thoughts, the more you engage in them and you apply them with things or experiences that happen around you, the more your body or your brain releases those hormones. It would make you feel better. It would enhance your mood, your motivation, and your focus. Then there's also a research or like a theory developed by a psychologist called Barbara Fredrickson. She worked on this theory called the broaden and build theory. So just to go over it very quickly, it shows that positive emotions broadens our thinking, and it enhances creativity, it enhances problem solving and social connections. So this psychological theory explains how our positive emotions broaden our thought action. And it helps us build personal resources over time. So what do we mean by that? So when we're exposed or when we're exposed to a certain difficulty, or we experience a certain issue around us, whether in the workplace, whether in social relationship, personal relationships, or anything, and we are more trained or have the positive mindset, we would be able to think more outside of the box. We would look into issues and problems from different lenses and different perspectives around us. We wouldn't be limited with one lens or with one angle of seeing things. So when we think outside of the box, we look into different perspectives. By that, we would be able to notice our resources, to notice people who would support us in that, to notice or to be aware of different solutions, of different things that would help us with our problems. That's what we mean with our personal resources. So we would be more aware of things around us that would help us and support us with whatever is going on. There's also a lot of studies, as I mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, about cultivating a positive mindset and how it helps us and how it supports us in different settings. So studies has shown that happier employees are 12% more productive on average. So we know from research, and we know also from what we observe from people around us, especially in the workplace, is that a positive mindset would help us a lot in focusing. And what we mean by that is that there's like less mental clutter from negative thoughts, allowing us to be more to have more better concentration, to focus more on tasks. So imagine you're focusing more on having a positive mindset. So by that, you wouldn't have this negativity bias towards things, towards having more negative thoughts and all of that. So there's less mental cluttering around this, and you'd be able to focus more on what you have to complete and what you have to finish for your work. It also enhances your resilience. So with resilience, you are more optimistic. You're more able to look at things from different perspectives and be sure, or like have this ability that things will get better in time. So you would be able to recover faster from setbacks, from certain obstacles and barriers that you experience along the way, whether at the workplace or even at your personal lives. And it also helps with motivation. And with motivation, it's this drive or this push that, or if I can say, call it like a can-do attitude that fosters a proactive approach to challenges. So when you have this mindset, when you work on such thoughts, you have this motivation or this push or drive that you want to solve things, that you want to make things better. So it would motivate you not only to solve things, but also to focus on different aspects that are important in the workplace or in anything related to your life. There's also, I would like to talk more about how do these habits of having a positive mindset and building this positive mindset would help fit in more. So of course, during this presentation, we would talk about techniques for building those skills, but also there's this important aspect when we talk about helping habits fit in, is something called like a cue reward cycle. With a cue reward cycle, we talk about like habits, as we mentioned before, like with even positive thinking and neuroplasticity, habits are formed or thoughts are formed through repetitive actions. The more I repeat something, the more I do, the more I think of something more, this connection is built and becomes like more stable and fixed. So this fixation is tied to triggers and to rewards. Like we do with children, we teach certain behaviors or certain thoughts through using like a schedule of reinforcement. So we tend to help children build such behaviors through a reward system. So there are different ways of following such rewards, but mainly what we do here, like an idea to give you an idea about like a cue reward cycle, is through rewarding yourself after doing a certain behavior, or after thinking a certain way, or after cultivating or maintaining a positive mindset. It's very important that you encourage yourself by celebrating the small wins, by reinforcing new behaviors. So whenever I do something in an appropriate way, think about things in a certain way, I would reward myself. And that reward shouldn't be something materialistic or something with money or gifts. That would work sometimes. But at the same time, it's very important with the reward system is that I acknowledge that reward. I tell myself, I encourage myself in a certain way. Oh yeah, you did this. You're progressing at this. You're making a change in this. So these are also examples of rewards that we can use. Telling myself that I'm doing a good job. Then there's the idea of a growth mindset. With a growth mindset is actually believing in your ability to change. And once you have this belief in the ability to change or ability to get better in things, it increases your persistence, and it makes you more consistent and more committed to the thing that you're doing and achieving. And this would help you build new habits that you've always thought about and you've always wished that you would have. So imagine with the growth mindset, what I mean with that. So imagine you want to work on a new habit or you want to work on a new lifestyle, but still you believe deep down that this would not work and this is not going to work and you will fail at this. This is not the growth mindset that we're talking about here. The growth mindset is actually having this belief deep down that you want to make a change. So it all mainly things start with developing this growth mindset. And finally, after we talked about the science of the positive mindset, there's definitely benefits for the workplace. So it helps a lot with improving teamwork and communication, because you are more open to feedback, because you are more working on yourself and improving yourself and motivating yourself. You want to work with teamwork, and you would communicate better with people around you. Of course, you would be better at problem solving under pressure. Relative to the broad and build theory, you have more resources. You're more open to different perspectives. You would look at things around you from a different perspective and from different angles. And finally, it would reduce stress and burnout, and this would lead to better or to higher job satisfaction and also to better performance at work. So guys, in case you have any questions, in case you have any input you'd like to share with us, please don't hesitate to drop them in the question box or in the chat box. We will look at that by the end of the presentation. So now we'll move to the second bit of our presentation, of our webinar, is actually the techniques for building and maintaining a healthy habit. Okay. So as I mentioned before, is the idea of having this growth mindset. And it all starts with the growth mindset and believing that this right mindset will work and will actually make a difference. So one important thing here that we're talking about is focusing on progress over perfection. So when we talk about progress and perfection, they're two different concepts. With perfection, I think there's a lot of us in here and that would look at perfection, or like would hope for perfection. We would hope for something like having things perfectly done, having a presentation perfectly done in terms of content, in terms of slides, in terms of presentation, being able to manage your time perfectly, doing all of that. We always aim for perfection. However, the idea here is that we want to create this shift, and overriding protection is through implementing a new concept here, which is focusing on progress. When we shift this focus to progress, it fosters a growth mindset. It helps us with a growth mindset, and it helps us believe that it is the right mindset, because challenges here would be seen as opportunities to learn rather than failures. With perfection, when we tend to do like 50%, 60%, even 70 or 80% of the work, we would consider this as a failure because we weren't able to complete the task as expected and as the standards that are expected from us. So we would consider ourselves that we failed in this and that we're not doing the job as needed or as wanted. That's why it affects our performance a lot, because we would see ourselves constantly failing at things that are asked from us and that our boss or manager would want us to do. So with shifting to progress, we would notice more that we are doing things right, but at the same time, there's always room for us to improve, which is very normal for human beings. Because if we present something, we might have said something wrong, we might have used a certain language that's not really appropriate. So here, with the progress mindset, I would ask for feedback. I would ask for questions. I would want people to tell me what I did right and also what I did wrong, for me to improve on that. So this in return would encourage collaboration by reducing fear of judgment, because when I do reduce the fear of judgment, I would collaborate with others. I would ask for feedback. I would ask for people to help me or support me in things. It also promotes innovation, because here, when I think more about progress and making changes and improving things and enhancing a certain task, they would feel safe to experiment new things. Like employees would feel safe to experiment new things, share ideas, talk about different concepts and discussing it with one another. So this would promote innovation here. And finally, there's the idea of building a culture of continuous improvement rather on focusing on unattainable perfection. So here we have to agree on the idea that perfection is impossible. No one will be able to reach that point where I will do everything to the maximum 100%. At the end of the day, if we're aiming for that all the time, we would get really tired and overwhelmed and exhausted by the end of the day because we are unable to attain that. We're always pressuring ourselves. We're always exhausting ourselves to reach a certain level, when in fact our abilities and capabilities wouldn't 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 be achievable. Like we wouldn't achieve things in the way that should be achieved, and that would affect us a lot on the personal level, psychological level, and it would affect our performance with how we do things. So here I have like a quick example that I want to share with you with working on this growth mindset. So the example here is about Emily, which is a corporate employee. She's working on a presentation for an important client, and she's been reworking the slides for days, obsessing over every single detail to ensure that the slides are perfect, they're flawless. As the deadline approaches, she feels overwhelmed, thinking, if this isn't perfect, then I'll fail. And the client here will think that I'm incompetent. So this is one of the thoughts that Emily would be thinking about when presented with such a case, with a presentation that she needs to work on. So I would like you, if you can just share in some of the thoughts and behaviors that you think Emily would be thinking about, or like would behave in a certain way. So I would give you some examples here about some thoughts that Emily would be thinking. So she might say something around every slide must look perfect, or the presentation will be ruined. So if she has one slide that's not perfect, that maybe she used a different color, maybe she has a lot of sentences, it's a big paragraph, or she used a wrong picture, the whole presentation would be ruined. And if there's a mistake, I'll lose the credibility. People will not believe in my skills or in my abilities or in the content of the presentation. So she's more thinking, having this all or nothing thinking, where if she's doing everything right, then that's perfect. If she's not, then everything is ruined. So accordingly, when having such thoughts, imagine how overwhelmed she might feel. And this would affect her behaviors. So she will tend to over-edit and revise endlessly. So she'd be spending like an overtime on this presentation. She would avoid feedback for the fear of criticism, because if she's also like, if people would give you feedback for something, she might consider it as a criticism and she wouldn't want to go there. And this would also exacerbate her anxiety and exacerbate the idea of the need of her to be perfect. And finally, she would be paralyzed and unable to perform well or as expected by the pressure that she needs to be flawless. So what needs to be done here? It's the idea of working on reframing our thoughts and reframing our behaviors. So first, instead of aiming for perfection, it's very important for us to aim for clarity and effectiveness. So here I would ask myself, or Emily should ask herself, does this presentation communicate the main points effectively? So here in this example, Emily is more focused on perfecting the slides, on making it seem flawless, on making the presentation look at its best. So here I would first consider the first important point, especially when it comes to a presentation that's being done at work or even in any other setting. Am I discussing the main points? Does the content fit what the client is asking me for? So this is the most important thing in here. Next comes the idea that we need to recognize and to know and to be aware that minor imperfections won't ruin the presentation. And this even can humanize the delivery. So now we know, and a lot of us, all of us mainly, are exposed to the AI tools and how AI can help us and support us in many presentations, papers, and all of that. But at the same time, we are not robots. So it's impossible for us to perfect things. And it's very important for us to know and be aware that imperfections is normal. And imperfections are normal, and we are exposed to them at any point in time. And this doesn't mean if we have a certain imperfection that it's ruining our work and it's ruining what we've been working on for so long. It's just us being humans working on a certain task and delivering it to a client or to our managers. Next, an important advice, or like an important way to reframe things here, is to break down the task. So Emily is very busy with the presentation, making it flawless and perfecting it, when in fact she's just focusing on one thing. So here it's important to focus, to break it down. First, focus on the content. Focus whether it serves the aim or the purpose of your presentation. Then maybe go into feedback. Then maybe at the end would focus on the small details that would make this presentation look better. So I do things one step at a time with smaller goals and smaller tasks, one thing at a time. And lastly, the idea of acknowledging progress, which takes me back to the cue reward cycle. With acknowledging progress, I'm telling myself that I'm doing things better, that I'm getting there, that I finished this task, and that I'm doing a great job. With acknowledging progress, I'm rewarding myself, not necessarily with a materialistic reward, but actually providing myself with words of affirmation, helping myself just take things one step at a time. Maybe this acknowledgement would be from a manager, from a colleague, or anything, but it's very important that I acknowledge the progress or the work that I'm doing, because remember, things start from within with the growth mindset that I need to be working on. So once Emily starts developing this working or this mindset, she would be able to tell herself or to think about things from a different perspective, saying that this presentation doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to clearly convey the key ideas to the client. So here I'm talking about the content mainly. So I'll focus on ensuring the core message is strong and is there, and I can refine any small details if time allows for it. So here she's giving herself the time. So here she's focusing more on content, the core message, to deliver it to the client, and then she'd be able to focus on smaller things. So this in return would reduce stress, increase efficiency, help with her performance, and builds confidence by valuing the effort and improvement over, again, the unattainable perfection. So now we move on to the habit formation strategies. We talked first about the developing the working on the growth mindset, and then the idea of starting small. It's just like a plant. We water the plant and it grows on bit by bit. And the same goes for habit formation. I don't want to start from 0 to 100. This would be very hard, very exhausting, and very overwhelming, affecting my motivation to do things later on. So it wouldn't last. Then there's the idea of habit stacking. What do we mean by habit stacking? Is that we need to build a habit one at a time. So first we start, so let me say I want to work on a healthy lifestyle. So with healthy lifestyle, maybe it consists of food, sleep, and exercise, for example. So I don't want to do them all at once. It would be very overwhelming, especially if I'm someone who's far beyond being healthy. So I would start maybe with the food. I would start maybe with minimal exercise. So I do one step at a time for me to start stacking them and building this strong base to actually fixate habits altogether. And finally, it's very important to abide by this strategy, which is setting SMART goals. So SMART stands for S for specific. Specific, we mean we need to be very specific around the goal that we want to achieve. So now I gave you the example of a healthy lifestyle. So healthy lifestyle consists of many elements. It can be food, it can be exercise, it can be sleep, it can be even social relationships. So it can be a lot of things. So I need to be specific about my goal and what I want to achieve. It needs to be measurable. With measurable, so let me say, I need to know or like assess my progress over time. So if it's me trying to gain or lose weight, I need to check my weight over time. I need maybe to look at my body composition. I need maybe to assess my calorie intake every now and then. Achievable. Let's say like the easiest is the losing weight example here. It needs to be achievable. So let me say I aim to lose weight. So it's very hard for me to lose weight for, let me say, 10 kgs per week. So I need to be very realistic here that maybe 1 kg is realistic. So I'd aim for 4 kgs per month. This is more achievable than losing 20, 20, 30, or even 40 kgs during that time. It needs to be relevant to my situation, relevant to my environment, to the context, to everything that's going on in my life. And finally, time bound. When we talk about time bound, it's about deadlines, giving myself like a specific time to achieve this goal, just to allow myself to check progress, to see how am I doing, and see things over time, what works for me, what not. Do I need more time? Do I need less? So now I'm thinking of us to help James as well. This is another example to try to help James think about how to build a new habit based on things that are going on also in his life and based on the techniques that were just given. So James is a marketing professional. He wants to start exercising regularly, but feels overwhelmed by the idea to committing to a full gym routine. So he thinks, if I can't work out for an hour every day, then what's the point? So also Jim is very busy at work. He has a lot of tasks to complete, a lot of things to commit to. Let me say, a very hard manager. He's not on good terms with all colleagues, and now he wants to start like a healthy lifestyle, and he's unable to commit to going to the gym. So there might be a lot of challenges for James, some of which are that James is setting really high expectations for himself. So 1 hour workouts a day. So he feels even discouraged before he even starts. So let me say, James is someone who doesn't exercise at all, and now he wants to start with 1 hour from the very beginning. James was also having his all or nothing mindset, and this mindset is preventing him from even taking the very first step. So how can we help James with building this new habit and working on this new habit? So first, we're thinking about the starting with a small approach, of course, because he's definitely it's definitely hard for him to start with a 1 hour per day. So we want to start things gradually. But before that, it's very also important to set a manageable goal, going with the SMART goal technique. We need it to be achievable. We need it to be something that he can help himself with, relevant to the situation that he's in, to his working hours, to the commitments that he have, completing his previous commitments, and then focusing on this new habits that he wants to form in order to work on also, we'll talk also the habit stacking. So we want it achievable, and we want it to be relevant and very specific. So instead of an hour, we can start with, again, with something small, start with 5 or 10 minutes daily. Then it's very important to choose an easy entry point, which it takes me back to the idea of habit stacking. I don't want to build hundreds of habits all at the same time, and I don't want him to focus on weight training, to focus on cardio, to focus on swimming, to focus on a lot of things all at the same time. We want him to begin with simple exercises one at a time. So then later on, he would be able to build this habit and be more consistent with it. Third is the idea of celebrating small wins, which is the acknowledgement acknowledging that he completed that task. So he decided that I wanted to start with 1 hour, then he wouldn't be able to do the 1 hour. He works full time. He needs to complete his hours. He needs to complete his tasks and all of that. He would return to work. He would return from work to his home maybe at around 7. He needs to eat, do all of that. He wouldn't have the time to do the 1 hour gym. So it's important to start small, do the 10 minutes, and then acknowledge, oh yeah, that's great, I did the 10 minutes. Acknowledge the progress that I'm doing and that I'm starting with something. So here comes the celebration of small wins. And finally, he needs to work on building this skill gradually. Over time, he can increase the duration, the intensity, because here confidence and habits will develop with time. When doing small things one at a time, it would look easier and it would seem easier for him to maintain this over time and then increase it gradually as per to what works with him, what is appropriate, and maybe he would be able to fit it in his schedule as it gains importance later on in his life. And as he starts also seeing the progress and results, he would be here more motivated, and also he would be more consistent with the idea of building those skills. So here James would reframe his thinking to, I don't need to go all in immediately. Starting small would help me build consistency, which is much more important in here, the consistency, and even 10 minutes a day is better than doing nothing. So he dropped from 1 hour to 10 minutes here. That would make this task seem easier to him. So after a few weeks, he's more consistent. He feels more confident and motivated. He then naturally starts increasing his workout time. He'd feel that he's seeing more results and better results in here. So he would turn a small beginning into a sustainable habit. So I know this is almost the last part of our presentation today. I know this requires like maybe a separate webinar here, but I thought it would be very important for us to draw the differentiation or the distinction between motivation and consistency, because I feel sometimes this is a trap that we tend to fall in with motivation, and that we need to have this motivation in order to build a certain habit. When we think about motivation versus consistency, it's very important to clarify the definition here. When we talk about motivation, it's the emotional drive. It's like this push to do something. It's more based on emotion and enthusiasm to achieve a goal. Whereas the consistency, it is the ability to show up every time and take action regularly, regardless of motivation level. So motivation is more around having this emotional drive, and consistency works regardless of whether we are motivated to do something or not. So here, as you see, motivation is emotional and temporary. It doesn't last for long. As for consistency, it's more about discipline, and it more helps you with long-term commitment and building the habit for a long time. With motivation, it requires inspiration and triggers. So I need to be triggered to do something. I need to be inspired. Maybe today I watch a YouTube video or watch a video on social media that would motivate me to work out tomorrow. But would that be consistent? I don't know. With consistency, it relies on habits and routines. So I need to build that routine in order to fixate that habit and be consistent around it. With motivation is unpredictable. So today I might be motivated to work out tomorrow. I would wake up tomorrow, but I don't have the motivation, so I wouldn't go to the gym, for example. As for consistency, it's more predictable and more reliable. I know I have a schedule for tomorrow. Regardless of how I am feeling, I will go to the gym tomorrow at 8 a.m. With motivation, it sparks action, but it fades quickly, because our emotions are not very stable. Sometimes I'm very happy and excited. Other times I feel tired and exhausted. So it wouldn't give me that energy or that push to do things. As for consistency, it builds lasting results over time. So as long as I have this consistency with things, motivation would come and go. So what is important is that I work on building habits gradually, and then I would be more consistent about it with seeing the results. And this is what is important: working on the progress and not perfecting things. Okay. So now, before we end this presentation, I would just want you to think and to imagine yourself, just something separate on your own. Imagine yourself, visualizing yourself sitting in a place that feels safe, that you're feeling happy, that you are satisfied with things around you. Imagine yourself as a successful person implementing or like maintaining a healthy habit. I would just want you to reflect on that. How does it feel for you to be successful? What steps can you take today to help you reach that point for building this habit that you have as you're visualizing? How were you supported? What were the resources that you used? What helped you? What didn't help you? What was a barrier and what wasn't? Sit with yourself, give yourself that time to imagine such a scene and see how does it feel for you, and how do you plan to take further steps or next steps to build such healthy habits. So this is everything for today. I hope this was helpful for you. We would give the time now in case any of you have any questions or like input or like reflections. And yeah, you can reach me out at Sarah at journeywellness.ae. Follow us at Trisha's Journey, and you can reach out to us on the following numbers. Thank you so much. Let's give the floor to some questions. I will stop sharing my screen for now.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. That was such a wonderful session.
Thank you so much. I hope it was helpful and fruitful for people.
I'm sure it was. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A tab. Before we take that, yes, I mean, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A tab, and we'll be happy to take them. The first one, Sarah, is how often should one repeat positive words or actions for the brain to start accepting it?
Mm-hmm. This is a really important question, and it is actually important for us to consider, especially that we're thinking about neuroplasticity. Of course, the more you do that, the more it helps you with building that positive mindset and with building this mindset to help you with the positivity and how you want things. There's actually not an exact number that you can do this, but it's very important for you to focus on making this a habit, on speaking to yourself in a certain way, on repeating such words or positive words, because as I said with the cue reward cycle, it's very important to give yourself the reward, to give yourself those words of affirmation, because it is something that sticks to your mind. And when we give those words or affirmation or those positive words, it would start with our brain connection, and it would help with building this and fixating this more. So it's not about giving you an exact number or how often to repeat it, but it's important that you do this more, that you start with it, at least maybe do it once, start small. You can start with doing it once every day, and then you start getting the gist of it to do it regularly on different things that you would want to progress and that enhance yourself or improve.
That does make sense, a lot of sense, in fact. So the next one is, how do we increase our happy hormones?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a nice question as well. Also, it's very specific from one person to the other. It's very specific because for me, there's something specific that makes me happy. For you, maybe it's something completely different. So again, it's very specific from me to other people. But the thing is with happy hormones, it's mostly they get released through positive emotions and through positive actions and through positive behaviors. So the more we invest in developing such things around us and developing this growth and positive mindset, they would help with the release of our happy hormones. So for example, with as per the previous questions, the more we repeat positive words or the more we repeat positive actions and we work on that and reward ourselves, the more we get to have more happy hormones, and we feel better about things. We would have a better mood, and we would it would feel different for us. So it's more
Right.
so it's
Hmm.
more about working around our habits and our goals and our thoughts that would help with the release of happy hormones.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to the next question. How to tackle peer pressure in workplace, having criticism to have perfection in day-to-day task.
Okay, so this is mainly around peer pressure who are criticizing uh, to criticizing the employee for certain tasks that they are
Yeah.
supposed to do.
Yeah, like they are expected to perfect the task, and
Mm,
if not, that they are criticized, and that's
yeah.
the peer pressure.
So this question is a bit it's very specific, and I think it's something that needs to be done like with something like another topic for us to tackle criticism and to tackle peer pressure and with setting boundaries and all of that. But there's something very important here when we talk about perfectionism and criticism. So here there are some questions that I would like to ask myself here. Am I doing this for them, or am I doing this for me? Is the task for people around me to see how am I performing? Is this does this depend on what others think about me and how I'm doing the task? It's very important to make this distinction between what others think and how I think about myself. Um, and again, when we talked about shifting the focus from progress over perfection, we need to know deep down ourselves and working on our own mindset that perfection is impossible. Whatever people are doing, whatever people are trying to pressure me to perfect a certain task, this is impossible. I don't know what others are thinking, for those who criticize us and for those to put a lot of pressure on us just to perfect something. They're in a different world, honestly, and things don't usually work like that. So it's very important to work on your own mindset and to know that imperfections, or like any minor imperfection or any imperfection, is normal, and this is part of us being humans. So just for the fact that we know this idea and that we know this task, this thought, it helps us with us believing in ourselves more, us working more on our performance, rather than just focusing on people who are pressuring you in the workplace. I know it's not easy, and I know it's very challenging, because at the end of the day, we're seeing those people, we're listening to a lot of comments from them, but it's very important that I focus on what I believe, what I think is right, rather than what they are imposing on me. Because we tend to be also very influenced and impacted by what others think of us, when in fact it's not others, it's us. It's us what we think about ourselves.
That's so true. Okay, Sarah, for now, we don't have any questions, but let's wait for a couple of minutes
Of
in
course, yeah.
case anyone has any more questions. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A tab.
In case any of the questions or like my answers weren't clear, you can also just comment just to clarify things even more.
We got one question here, Sarah.
Yes.
As a leader, how can we support the team to encourage consistency?
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things that I made sure that I make the distinction between motivation and consistency. Because first, we always tend to, maybe sometimes we use them interchangeably, sometimes we disregard the idea of consistency and we just focus on motivation, to keep our employees motivated to do something or to do a certain task. So first, one of the important things is to make the distinction, that consistency isn't just only about having this drive or this emotional drive or this push to do things. Consistency is something else. So I need to educate people around me about what consistency is and how it works. And second, at the same time, one important thing is, for me to start with consistency, I need to also include some motivation factors around employees, because it's very important for me to motivate clients or to motivate employees to come. So this would be like something that would attract them. But I would also need to work on my skills with my employees to help them to keep that consistency. So I need to work also on my skills with those employees. Am I being supportive? Am I being helpful? Am I providing constructive feedback? Am I there for them to help them with any difficulties, or they would meet me with anything? So this is very important. With also how am I being with them? That would encourage their consistency to work better. So once employees start to be consistent, they would care more about the work. They would enhance their performance more. They would be more active in what they're doing, especially when you're doing your role right with your employees. So that mainly would help them. It's actually educating them around this, and also being an active leader, an active supportive leader, to help them with whatever they're going through with their work and difficulties or struggles.
Right. There's one more question here.
Yes.
Although I know we are running out of time, but let's just
Fine.
quickly take these questions. The person would like to know if there are any other ways of forming habits other than doing a task regularly.
Mm. So I'm thinking about this with forming habits. It's very important actually to work on things repetitively, especially. Uh, I'm sorry that it's not that easy, because we can't build something overnight. Especially as a clinical psychologist, I always tell my clients when they come to the clinic that it's very important that change doesn't happen overnight, and we can make things better very easily, and I hope we can. But unfortunately, things take time, and things need to be processed, and we need to build that habit for our brain to be ready and to grasp it and to understand that this is something new that is coming. So I need to be easy on myself with doing this habit, but unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight. And like sometimes one night I would say I want to change my mindset, but the other day it wouldn't happen. That's why with habits, I need to be consistent. I need to do it repetitively for myself um, to be ready for it, for its presence in my life, and also to accept that it's something that I'm introducing to my life. So I'm sorry, it needs some repetition.
Yeah, of course. Okay, we'll take the last two questions, Sarah.
Yes.
The person would like to know, how do I encourage peers to join or engage our happiness activities, even though we do apply what they require? How do we encourage?
Okay.
How do we encourage and maybe motivate peers to join and engage in, probably they are organizing happiness activities and members are not really participating, so how do they encourage their peers to join and engage in happiness activities even though they're trying to do everything that they require or they might find interesting?
Okay. Okay. So, when we talk about happiness activities, it's something that is a kind of broad, because I crossed upon this a bit before, is that what makes me happy is different from what makes you happy. So this is a very broad topic when it comes to happiness. So it's very important that I know from people around me what is something that makes them happy. Maybe something that makes me happy is eating ice cream. For another person, maybe it's something around achieving a certain task or achieving a certain goal. So it's very subjective. So it's important to make things more specific. Not to go around just happiness activities and what makes my mood get better, but to actually ask people around me, what is something that makes you happy? What's something that you care about? What's something, and getting this idea from people around me would make this activity be more specific, that would encourage people and would attract people to join. I'm not sure if this answers the question in here.
Okay, while we wait for that person to reply, I'll quickly take the last question.
Okay.
How to differentiate between stress and anxiety, and what are the symptoms of anxiety?
This is a very important question, and I think a lot of people would be struggling with this. When we talk about anxiety, stress, it can be anything stressful that we experience throughout the day. It can be like a presentation. It can be like a task that my boss or manager asks me to do that would make me feel stressful to complete it. But with stress, it is something that is manageable, that still I can be under control to deal with things and be able to perform the task. So this would be stressful. And this is the kind of normal stress that happens with the workplace and with regular things around us. But when we talk about anxiety, especially here, I'm talking about the clinical anxiety that we tend to see in the clinic mainly, or like with people suffering with anxiety or struggling with anxiety. It's more about having those constant anxious thoughts that would kind of affect my well-being. With anxiety, it tends to affect our day-to-day functioning, that would affect our performance, that would affect maybe our social relationships, that would affect me from completing a certain task and from completing what is asked from me. So with anxiety, it tends to affect performance, and it tends to affect our day-to-day functioning. With anxiety, we tend to feel a lot of physical symptoms like nausea, like fast heartbeats, maybe shivering, maybe sweating, maybe dizziness. So it involves a lot of physical symptoms or physiological responses relative to the certain situation. And with anxiety, it happens very much often than with stress and being able to manage that stress. So it's very important for me to keep track on when am I being anxious and to what situations and what am I feeling. So yeah, and it tends to affect performance and am I functioning as well, and also the mood, and it gets along with other things as well.